Well, good afternoon, Rossmore. Welcome to our third virtual town hall meeting. Today we're going to be discussing public safety. I'm Jeff Matheson, the general manager, and with me today is our public safety manager, Tom Cashon. We will be answering questions in relation to anything for public safety, whether it is improvements and hardening type projects that we've done for safety improvements, or whether it is emergency preparedness planning, Securitas, front gate access, a whole variety of topics we'll be answering today. But this really depends on questions that you ask us, so we get the conversation going. So we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, our first question comes from Miss Weiss, who lives on Skycrest Drive. She wants to know what the current status is for the proposed pedestrian gates at the main entrance to Rossmore.
All right. Great question. So just to kind of give a little bit of a history of this, last year I proposed it under our capital budget as a way to better secure our front. As everybody knows, the gates are well secured for vehicle traffic, but for pedestrian, it's not. You can walk in on either sidewalk. And the board approved the funding to do the pedestrian gate. Unfortunately, about a month to 2 months later, the money had to be reallocated for another project. So with the guise being that we would look at it again this year, and we have, the board now is looking at a rendition of the gate, what it will look like. They've actually come on out and toured the area. And Brandon, if you can bring up the pedestrian gate, that'd be great, so that they can see where it's going to be located. There's actually going to be two, one on each side of Rossmore Parkway at the gate. And right there is kind of an overview of what it will look like. If you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see these two dark lines. The two dark lines represent actually fencing. And the reason why there's fencing there is that someone couldn't just walk around the gate. And that fencing is only 4 feet high, and it's actually nice looking fencing. It's not like cyclone fencing that we're proposing, more like the iron fencing is what we would be using. And then if you look to the bottom of the right corner, you'll see like a dark area, and that's actually where one of the two places we're proposing the gate to be. Another one is a little bit further in underneath the big oak tree, but that's where the gate would be on that side. And if you go over to the other side of the photo on the left side, you'll see only one dark line, and you might wonder, well, then can't they just go around the right? Well, no, they can't, because there is actually a fence there, and there's a large hill that runs along that area. And so that way, it's very difficult for someone to go around the gate, go into the traffic lane. And not only that, it'd be really dangerous to be doing that. So that's kind of the setup of the pedestrian gate. We're hoping, I believe Ann Motolo said that they will revisit. I think it's next month. And hopefully they'll approve the funds for us to do an artist rendition. And then after that, I'll have to come back with the final price of the gate.
Tom, do we have cameras right now that cover the sidewalk areas and stuff?
Yeah, we do. It's part of our access program back 3 years when I first started, is I replaced all the cameras so that they would cover the sidewalks. And so they're all covered. We can see everybody coming in and leaving. And then also we have the automatic license plate cameras also are at the gate. Now that's capturing every vehicle license plate that comes in as well. Some might ask, why do we do that? Well, there's a reason, is it prevents unauthorized access. It also allows someone who's anonymous to come through the community. And if there is ever a problem, we're able to give that information back to the Walnut Creek Police Department as part of their investigation.
How would somebody get through a gate if they were walking in?
Right now?
No, once we have pedestrian gates, how would somebody
how do they get in? All right, like an authorized person to come in. So there's a couple of ways. One, if you're a resident, the thing that we're looking at is a way that you would scan in to come on in. So you'd have a card which would allow you to scan in. Also using your cell phone's another way. Dwelling Live is actually looking to be the front runner though, because we're seeing right now that Dwelling Live is very easy for those who are using it. And we'll talk probably later about Dwelling Live. but it allows people to go ahead and use their phones to get access. You bring up a QR code and you'd walk up and you would scan your QR code. That would unlock the door. We also have, it'd be electric so that it would open. So if you're in a wheelchair or one of those scooters, you can also be able to open it that way. If you are a visitor and you're coming, let's say your friend Nancy is coming to visit you and she wants to walk in, when she got to the gate, she would press a button. There's a camera there that would record her face, and then the gatehouse attendant would be able to see that and ask, who are you here to see? Be able to check your guest list and then allow them access into the community.
Very good.
And on the way out, let me just cover that though. On the way out, it'd be just like the typical push bumper bar where it just automatically will unlock. So you don't have to do anything to leave the
You don't
community.
need authorization to leave the
No, you
community?
don't. We're not
Okay.
trying to keep people in here, so.
Next question.
All right, we have a question from Miss Greenberg, which is entries 6, 7, and 8 are impacted by being back-to-back with Del Val. Is there a way for those homes to be walked by security monthly?
I think the concern was the fence in the back of those homes, those units there go up to Del Valle, and there's been access either through or around that gate.
Yeah, so this came up probably about 6 months, 8 months ago. I went out there and learned that the gate was not correctly locked. I fixed that, so now the worry was someone could be able to climb under the gate. You can't do that now, the gate's fixed now. And Securitas does check that as part of their routines, is they do check that gate. Now, walking fence lines, no, that isn't part of the contract. If you take it into account that we have 1,800 acres, I can only imagine that walking fence lines throughout the community would take a lot of time. And they are quite busy with a bunch of calls, so that wouldn't be feasible. But they do check the gate 2 times in a 24-hour period.
All right. And the next question is from Miss Cruz. She lives on Fairlawn Court, and by her unit there are 2-inch dips in the sidewalk. Unfortunately, she did have an injury from tripping on one of them, and she is curious why they are there and if they can be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a note, and we'll see if we get that fixed.
But anytime anybody notices a potential tripping hazard, they should call the work order desk or email the work order desk, so that can be assigned to our crews to go out and investigate whether it is on mutual property or GRF property. We certainly would want to take care of any tripping hazards. So just contact the work order desk either via phone or email.
All right, and we have another question from Miss Bluff. Is there a gun buyback program that can be implemented?
No, there is not a gun buyback program. Just so everybody knows, I am retired from the Walnut Creek Police Department. I was there for over 24 years, and we looked at that many times, our community did. It is a very mixed results with actually not making much of an improvement of making a community safer. Essentially what they found out in the studies where they did do that in communities is people turned in their old, sometimes broken guns, and then they used the money to go buy new guns. So it wasn't lowering the number of things. Here in a private community, I just don't see a benefit of doing that. I don't think that would be the role of the Golden Rain Foundation. If it would be, if anything, the city of Walnut Creek would probably have to host something like that, or maybe the sheriff's department on a much larger scale.
When it comes to public safety, the difference between the authority of the city or other agencies, the authority of Golden Rain Foundation and Securitas, explain the difference there between Securitas, PD, or other regulatory agencies.
Yeah, so we are not a public safety agency per the law. We do public safety management and we do things like that. But Securitas is not a police force. They don't have any police powers. They can do nothing more than what a regular citizen can do. And so really what they're there to do is to respond to mostly quality of life incidents. There are a few minor crimes that they respond to, and that being like trespassing. And they're just the initial to observe, report, ask to leave, and if they fail to leave, then they contact the police department, which is Walnut Creek Police Department in our jurisdiction. So a police department has a lot more authority to do things with people. They can arrest people, they can stop people in their cars. All of that is what a police department can do. Securitas cannot do any of that, and neither can the Golden Rain Foundation.
When should somebody call the police department, and when should they call Securitas?
Great question, Jeff. I like that one a lot.
Thank you.
So like anything, if it is a crime, it's the Walnut Creek Police Department first. Second would be Securitas. So if you have anything that is considered to be a crime, or you feel like your safety is about to be harmed, or you're very scared, that should always go to the police department first, and then Securitas second. You never want to cause your lag time, which is the time from notifying the police, from getting the call, responding to the call. That's called lag time. If you call Securitas, this is what's going to happen. Securitas is going to tell you, you need to call the police department. Securitas does not call the police department for residents unless they're physically unable to do that. So for example, if someone was on the ground and was not responding, they'll go ahead and call 911. That's a clear one. But for the other ones, the police department requires the person who is involved in the incident to call them. They don't want to hear it from a third party. They want to hear it from the person who's witnessing a crime or seeing a crime or is fearful themselves. So always call Walnut Creek Police Department first and Securitas second.
So Securitas has EMTs, right? How do they find out about an emergency if somebody needs medical attention?
Yeah, so either, a lot of times it's mainly calls into Securitas, but the other way they do is they monitor all radio traffic for both fire, police, and ambulance traffic. So they hear it, they then respond if they have a person available. They respond, and it's 95% of the time, our Securitas EMT is on scene before any public emergency technician would be there.
So in a medical emergency, always call 911. Don't call Securitas.
Absolutely, absolutely. Remember we talked about lag time? So now let's talk about a life and safety thing. So if you're severely injured or someone's severely injured, by failing to call the correct authorities, which is 911, you decrease the chances of survivability. The whole idea is to get them to advanced medical care. Securitas cannot transport. They don't have any of the same things that a paramedic would have. They can't administer medicine like a paramedic can, and they can't transport like the paramedics can. So please, if it's a life or death situation, by all means, always call 911 first, and then you can always follow up if you have time to call Securitas.
Perfect. When can we sign up our guests online for the front gate?
Yeah, good question. So everybody knows we have this thing called Dwelling Live. This was implemented almost about 18 months ago. And what it does is it now requires everybody to not be anonymous anymore. You can't come in anonymously. We record everybody who comes in, like every driver. So if they're a driver's license, we scan their driver's license so that we have a record of everybody coming in. And we also now do a much better job of checking the authorization list to see whose guest list they are on and really confirm that they are allowed to come in the community. So everybody knows every guest has to be authorized to come into this community. We can't do like admit all anymore, which used to be here. Or if they come and ask for me, just let anybody in if they ask for me. No, that is very an unsafe way in a community like this. So now we have Dwelling Live. The great thing about Dwelling Live is it actually allows you, if you like, to be a participant in Dwelling Live, meaning that you can go ahead, log into your account on Dwelling Live, and you would be able to fix your own guest list, put people on your guest list, take people off your guest list, ban people from coming in who you don't want to come in to see you anymore. And here's another good one. You could be alerted by checking a box and putting your cell phone in there. You could get a text or an email stating that your guest has just cleared the gate. So if you have like a few minutes to get ready, or you want to clean up a little bit, or you want to meet them outside, you're now alerted to know that, hey, my guest just cleared the gate. I know they'll be here in 5 minutes, because that's how long it takes once you clear the gate. So it gives you that other special stuff that you get to see from it. Now, as far as implementing it, our original plan for Dwelling Live was to be under My Rossmore. And so that all residents would be able to go to My Rossmore, one-stop shop, log into My Rossmore, and be able to have access to all the different things that we offer here. If it's, the golf course, you want to make a golf reservation. Or tea time. If you want to go to the fitness center and register for a class, or if you want to go to the event center and see the latest play or theater thing that's going on there. That's the whole idea that we had for My Rossmore. Unfortunately, My Rossmore became very expensive. It was, customized just for us. And because of that, the ongoing cost to maintain it was getting higher and higher. So now, Ann Peterson is looking into another software package, which would be a lot cheaper, and then still provide that same ability to do that. The whole idea is we didn't want to have residents have to log in on this, and then go and log in here, and then log in here, and log in there. But we will know probably in about the next month to 2 months whether or not that is going to be fiduciarily responsible for us to purchase the new one, and whether or not we'll be able to actually do one login to do that. Once we do have that decision, if it turns out that it's not going to work for us, that one login, we will then start letting people sign up with Dwelling Live. We have to first get some things in line. We have to have a nice technical support team here so that it can help people to log in and do all those things in case they have any questions. So we have to get that into place. We have to do a lot of trainings with the community to make sure everybody knows how to use it. And then there's another thing I want everybody to be aware of. If you don't want to use Dwelling Live, you don't want to get on a computer, you don't feel comfortable with any technology like that, you can just do it the same way like always. You can call down to the gate and put someone on your guest list, remove someone from your guest list. There'll be no change in that area.
So a lot of nice amenities still ahead in regards to access. And a lot of this is tied to our NetSuite implementation for our new management software, because we need to have a solid database of all of our current and residents and their designated occupants and everything in order to have that available at the front gate and implement it. All has to talk to each other. So there's a lot of key pieces still in the works, but a lot of great things ahead related to access.
Right. One more front gate question. When will the gate arms be replaced for lanes 1 and 2?
Great question. Just so you know, our gate arms have kind of had minds of their own. We have some that were crashing down on cars for no reason. We had some that would just stick up. That's one reason why you're seeing lanes 1 and 2 not have gate arms, and we have the stop signs in there, and then we also put in the speed bump. That's a temporary speed bump is all it is. And so we put that in there to try to stop people when they came in, because we were seeing once we took off these gate arms, people would just drive through. So we have now, and as you probably already see, sometimes lane number 4 stays stuck up. Securitas is supposed to monitor that and be closing that whenever that happens. We went to the board under the capital budget. They approved the expense to replace those gate arms. And right now it's going through the contracts, and hopefully it'll be signed soon, and we'll be able to install them soon. So hopefully within maybe a month or 2, we'll have the new gate arms up.
All right. Let's move on to some fire safety. How do residents find out what their evacuation zone is?
That's a great one. Brenda, do you want to bring up the evacuation card? So, yeah, there it is right there. So that's the first side of it. So the model we use here is to be prepared for fire season is the Ready, Set, Go. That's a national model, and as you can see, green's ready, yellow's set, red is go. And then, as you can see, there's different things that you should be doing in order to be ready for the fire season. And then off to the right, we have a lot of other tips of what to do, as well as phone numbers of who to call and things like that. Before we go on to the next slide, I want to cover this because this has been a thing that happened before I even got here. I believe there was a fire marshal who came to a community meeting and told everybody, if there's ever a big fire, just go get on the golf course. Well, obviously that is not a very good plan. That is a weak plan. That's not what we say now. However, there is one thing we do say, is if everything else fails, meaning you can't get out of the gate, there's too much traffic, and all the emergency exits aren't working either, and that fire is coming, then as a last resort, you do go to the golf course. We saw that up in Santa Rosa. People fled out onto the golf course and they survived. We also saw people jumping in their swimming pools and they survived. But that's the last resort. Now, to get to that point, hopefully you've done everything else to self-evacuate because you saw smoke and you're like, I'm not even gonna wait for an evacuation order. You listened to the evacuation order when it was given and you responded and you left when it was given. You followed what evacuation zone you live in and you're notified that way. If you pull over the other side of the card, Brenda, if you could bring up the other one, and I'll show everybody. So that's one thing that I started when I got here is I broke up our community into 8 different evacuation zones. People say, why do we have 8? Well, it's all about managing the amount of people through the gate. So for us to be able to manage the load of all those people trying to evacuate at one time, if it was the whole community, we couldn't do it. The emergency services could not handle it. And just let me be clear, Golden Rain Foundation will never, ever call for an evacuation order. We are legally not allowed to do that. Only the fire department and the police department, or the sheriff's department if it's a very large one, are allowed to call for an evacuation order. We will never do that. We're not part of that. That is outside of the scope of our responsibility as well as our authority. So if you can go back to the card, as you can see, there's 8 zones, and each zone has a community in it, obviously different streets. And on every street that you go into the different zone, as you start on that street, you should see a sign that tells you what zone you are entering. And then when you pull into your entry, if you have an entry, you will see on your entry sign the zone as well of where you are. So if you haven't had a chance to get one of these cards, you can get them at Rossmore News, you get them down at Gateway, you can get them up at MOD. We have them in several places where you can pick these up and then you can look to see what zone you are in. You can also go to the fantastic Rossmore EPO website, and on there you can also find this information and you can see what zone you are in real easily as well. I also encourage everybody to check out the EPO. It's rossmoreepo.org, and go through their website and see all the stuff on different emergency preparedness stuff. And since we're talking about fires right now, Brenda, do you mind playing the video I brought today of the drone footage of Rossmore, just so everybody could see some of the stuff we're doing?
Created as part of our education for underwriters related to our property insurance that we purchase for all of the community. So they understand how safe the community really is, because they just look at Northern California wildfire and rate it that way. But this video hopefully helps them understand a little bit more about the work that's been done and the limited risk that it is. Golf course plays a major role in separating the 2 sides of the valley and providing a nice expanse of green space. Rossmore is.
So as you can see, we've done a lot in just a year. That video came out a year ago, maybe even less than a year ago. And as Jeff was pointing out, it says we are on our way trying to become a FireWise community. We are a FireWise community thanks to Yadoon Wright, the MOD director, and his people that put it together, who were made up of volunteers of our residents who joined together and was able to get us that. It's called recognition is what it's called. And we actually have this on, if you go to the rossmore.com website and you go to public safety, you click on that, you'll see the FireWise tab on there. And if you click on it, you'll actually see our recognition certificate, I guess is what it would be. And you can print that on your computer or on your printer, and you can use that with your insurance company to, if they accept it, for a reduction in your homeowner's insurance. I know State Farm currently gives 5% off of your premium if you can produce that for them. And what FireWise does is actually, it's a multifaceted way to make your community safer. A lot of it is done with landscaping and what you do in and around your residence. And so that you make it safer by defensible space, different materials that you use and don't use. So there's a lot of that goes into this. But then there's also a lot of education of the community, how to prevent fires, what should you do if there is a fire, and things like that. And speaking of that, Jeff, did you want to share? There's a town hall coming up?
There is a town hall. So there is a FireWise town hall on June 10th at the event center starting at 10 a.m. This is valuable because one of the requirements for FireWise is having so many hours of community service and community involvement. By attending either virtually or in person the town hall, each of you can count towards that requirement for our volunteer hours. So not only is it valuable information for you to come and learn about FireWise and what we're doing in the community and what all of the volunteers are doing on that committee, but your time counts towards our certification for FireWise. So really valuable information and valuable to the community. So come out, and that's June 10th, Event Center, 10 a.m. and it also, I believe, will be virtual.
And we'll be covering a lot of different topics at that town hall, one being evacuations. The Walnut Creek Police Department chief is actually going to be here talking about evacuations and what does the police department do? What is their role during a large catastrophic event where evacuations are called? Anywhere from traffic control to actually knocking on doors and things like that. So you'll learn a lot of that at that town hall on June 10th. The other thing I kind of wanted to talk about on that video was our shaded fuel break. This was a huge thing that's happened here. To give you a little bit of a backstory on it, Fire Marshal from the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District, Chris Bachman, he actually on his own went out and obtained a $3.1 million grant from CAL FIRE to essentially do a shaded fuel break all around Rossmore. Brenda, do you mind pulling up the map? So as you can see, and I know it might be a little small on your screen, but if you look at the red lines and the yellow in there, that is actually the shaded fuel break. And where you see yellow, those are grasslands. And when there's grasslands, it's actually a lot wider. So they expand out. And one thing you might like to hear on the grasslands, what they're going to do on the grasslands, is actually they are going to be using goats to clear those grasslands. And so that would be pretty exciting to see a lot of goats here, but all that yellow is going to be cleared by goats here in the next, probably 4 to 6 months when the goats are here. And then as you see the other like red lines, it gets bigger in certain areas and smaller in others. But as you can see, it pretty much goes around, I'd say 90% of Rossmore. And then you can see to the left, it's a tail. And you're like, well, what's that tail doing as it goes off to the left to do a big yellow area? That's part of Lafayette, because they did a multi-jurisdiction grant, and so Lafayette is also part of this, as well as the city of Walnut Creek. And the whole goal is actually to tie up with the one in Orinda and Moraga. So when this is done, currently this part that you're looking at right now is 12 miles. It's 286 acres. And then once it ties into the Moraga Orinda one, it will be over 500 miles long, just definitely making all of our communities safer because of this. So this was huge. GRF actually helped a lot with getting this approved or awarded. We contacted some of our politicians, we wrote letters, and then we also helped Chris Bachman go on different areas of our community and show him the different areas so that he can map out what would be the safest and best way to do the shaded fuel break. Part of our shaded fuel break is how do they clear the material after they take it down. So they're removing brush, they're removing grasslands, they're also trimming up trees, limbs. And the reason they do that is so that if a fire starts down in some grass, there's no ladder fuels. And ladder fuels is like, let's think of a fire being at, let's say it's 2 feet tall, and then it hits a bush, and the bush is actually 4 feet tall. Now the flames are growing even bigger to 5, 6 feet. Now they catch a tree on fire. And when a tree catches on fire, it goes all the way up to the top. And now you have a thing called the canopy fire. And what happens when you get to the top of a tree in any kind of wildfire scenario, the winds are created actually by the fire and things like that. And now it's real easy for embers to go from one tree to another tree, to a house, to another house. So it's really dangerous once it gets up into the tree canopy. So the whole goal of the shaded fuel break is to prevent it from ever getting into a tree or catching a tree on fire. Some people might go, well, doesn't the bark catch on fire? Actually, no. Bark actually protects the tree from fire. So, I mean, granted, if it's so hot and so out of control, the bark's not going to be able to do that. But by doing this, this increases our chances of being able to put out a fire a lot quicker and essentially make Rossmore a lot safer.
This is a phenomenal project that we have benefited from our partners from Contra Costa Fire District, from Cal Fire, from others. We couldn't have achieved this. One of our roles will be to maintain this in future years, but I can't stress enough that we have really benefited from some phenomenal support from some of our public agency partners in looking out for Rossmore. And this is one of the things when we talk to underwriters for our insurance policies, trying to make sure we can get enough coverage for the community or affordable coverage. We want them to be aware of all of these measures that are taking place in Rossmore to make it a safer community, a better risk to invest in. So these type of steps that are being taken are just wonderful in terms of making the community safer, but also help us in able to maintain insurance coverage and get quality insurance coverage.
And so, wait, real quick, if
Yep.
I could. So the material, so obviously there's a lot of material coming out of that acreage, and they are doing around an acre a day of clearing. So they're really moving at a really good rate. And part of that material, actually the vast majority of it is actually chipped and left on scene after it's chipped because it's very safe to do that. However, there's certain areas where they cannot get a chipper. And I know everybody might have seen the stuff in the newspaper where we talked about burn piles, and then we also put out a nixle about the burn piles. Burn piles are a very safe and effective way to manage any forested area. It's done throughout the state and nation. And so our fire department in those areas actually manage those burn piles themselves, meaning that they have this thing called Crew 12, and they come on out. It's a group of, I believe, almost 40 firemen, and they actually look after, they bring out a fire truck that has water on board in case something gets out of control, and they burn very small little fires to burn up the material. And so what will happen is that smoke comes into the community. However, what's really good so far is that this has all happened on the east side of the community. So this is behind MOD. For those who might not know what north, south, west, east is in the community, this would be up on the hill, actually over the hill of MOD if you're looking on that way. And back there is where they've been doing the burning. I have very few complaints, if anything, of smoke. They've managed it extremely well. They'll continue to do that probably until the first week of June, and then after that, they're no longer allowed to do it, and it's just because it gets too dangerous with the dry grasses and things like that. And they actually have to get a permit. The fire department has to go and get a permit from both the Air Quality Board and CAL FIRE in order to do those burnings. So there's a lot of oversight on these things, and they are experts at what they're doing. So I just want to calm anybody being worried about having these burn piles and burning. It is a very safe and effective way to manage the material removed.
Joy, do we have any questions?
Actually, in regard to the shaded fuel break, will this have any money savings for the insurance?
So certainly one of the challenges with property insurance right now is capacity, so available coverage, and rates, the cost of the coverage. And anything we can do to demonstrate that Rossmore is a good investment for underwriters to provide different layers of coverage, the better. And certainly these types of programs are very useful. They also, the more we can protect the community and prevent losses, any type of loss, the better our rating would be. So yes, it's a very good investment. Not only is the shaded fuel break valuable, but things like Firewise, like all of the projects that are being done in and around the various mutuals, installing the attic brakes and stuff like that. All of those things help us to limit any type of loss, and then that helps our overall rating.
And with the fire risk, why are grills still allowed in Rossmore?
So regarding the grills, it is safe to grill in Rossmore. There are certain restrictions, though, that do go into play that Golden Rain Foundation has on their properties here, and that's if there's a red flag warning day. And some people go, what's a red flag warning day? Well, that's when there's high heat, low humidity, and high winds. That becomes a dangerous event, and it's called a red flag warning, because if a fire starts during those events, when there's those conditions, it becomes very dangerous and very difficult to handle that kind of fire. Santa Rosa happened on a red flag warning day. Maui happened also on a red flag warning day. So on a lot of the big ones, actually probably all of the big ones, they all started during a red flag warning. So on red flag warning days, we do prohibit any open flame grilling on any GRF property. So you're not allowed to have any kind of open flame grills. You can't go to Shady Glen, or Sportsman's Park, where there's another grill up there. You're not allowed to barbecue up on those things. And also, we don't have any events, we don't allow any events down at Gateway or any of the other places that allow barbecuing or open flame grilling during a red flag warning. You might wonder, well, how do I know when it's a red flag warning? Well, now a lot of times the news stations are playing it now almost every time because they see how important this is. Although red flag warnings have gone out back in the 50s is when they first started doing these. But now they see how important they are in our current environment and how dangerous it can be when we have a red flag warning. So we do a couple things to help our community to understand when there is a red flag warning. We send out a nixle now every time there's a red flag warning. We also hoist a red flag underneath the American flag at the gate. And that is also to alert residents coming and going that red flag indicates that we are under a red flag warning watch. And so that it makes us hopefully safer by doing so. One other thing I did want to bring up is the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation book. This is brand new. We started it last year. I still think of it as brand new, and we just got a whole new publication of all of these that just went out. If you have not seen this or picked up a copy, please go pick up one. It's kind of become the resident's guide to everything you need to know about wildfire preparedness and evacuation. You can pick these up at Gateway, Rossmore News, MOD, and you can find a lot of information that's in here. And also there is some information about the evacuation map is on the back of this. And it also talks about if you are under an evacuation and you leave, what are the things you should do to help notify public safety, the police department, that you've actually evacuated, so that they don't have to spend time at your door, that they see a notice that you've already evacuated. So all of that is in here, so please, if you haven't seen it, please go pick it up. Very important to our residents here.
All right. Let's move on to traffic safety. Why are there no traffic lights in Rossmore?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of reasons why. First, I'll say a lot of it is cost. They are extremely expensive. And two, you can't put in just one traffic light and then have stop signs around it. That doesn't work for the effective movement of traffic. So that's another issue. So if you put in one traffic light, you're gonna have to put in traffic lights in a lot of other places. So again, there's a big expense to doing that. Another thing with traffic lights, what happens in a community, your speeds go up in traffic when there's traffic lights. If you think about you're not slowing down a vehicle for a stop sign and you're having a green light from, let's say, on Rossmore Parkway at Terra, California, I can go as fast as I want all the way until I get to Tice Valley Boulevard. Obviously, that is not a safe thing to do as well. And we've also had traffic engineers study this and look at this, and they've all recommended the stop signs over doing traffic lights.
So if the person goes in front of me at a stop sign, that doesn't mean that it's green?
No, you have to stop at all stop signs. That's a good thing I'd like to talk about real quick, though. So we have a very unique relationship with the Walnut Creek Police Department. You don't see this in a lot of other private communities like Rossmore, where we have an agreement that the Walnut Creek Police Department will enforce all traffic laws in Rossmore. So Rossmore is a private community, correct? It's a gated community, right? The streets are actually owned by the Golden Rain Foundation. They're maintained by the Golden Rain Foundation, but the laws are enforced by the Walnut Creek Police Department. So if you fail to stop at a stop sign and the police department sees you, you are going to receive a ticket. And that ticket is very expensive. So don't think just because you're on private property that the laws don't apply. They do apply. And we have many signs throughout the community to let people know that they do. So speeding's another one that we see a lot here. And we've actually just started working with the police department just recently with a new way of, how do we say this, accountability. And every month they're going to send us how many citations they've issued, how many traffic stops they've made, and we will be publishing that in the Rossmore News every month. And already, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, I've already been seeing them a lot here. So please follow the rules of the road, stop at all at all stop signs. Please also pay attention to pedestrians and give them the right of way. Be alert, pay attention to your speedometer, don't just be looking straight ahead. And remember, this is a community where we all have to look after each other and we all have to be safe with each other.
And the speed limit throughout Rossmore is?
25 miles an hour.
And that is because we have golf carts in this community. So it's mandatory that our speed limit be 25 for the safety of the folks in the golf carts that are permitted on all of our streets, correct?
Yep. And there's a fantastic group, if you're interested in learning more about how to make Rossmore safer on our streets. Neighbors for Safer Streets is a fantastic organization. It's a club that started here in Rossmore about a year ago. And I encourage you to check into what they're doing. They're doing a lot. They're actually going to be at the farmers markets now that we started the farmers markets. So you can go down and talk to them. And they've been really good about influencing and letting us know about different issues that we probably would have never even noticed because someone saw an issue, saw some hazard, and brought it to our attention. So please check into that group. It's a fantastic club.
Speaking of the golf carts, can they be driven to the Rossmore Shopping Center?
Technically, no. So you're allowed to drive 1 mile from the golf course in a golf cart that is not registered and doesn't have all the safety equipment that is required of vehicles. And the reason being is you are not allowed to drive that golf cart on any road that its speed limit is higher than 25 miles an hour. Well, you say, well, wait a minute, Tom, Rossmore Parkway is 25 miles an hour. That's correct, it's 25 miles an hour all the way to Safeway. The thing that makes it technically illegal is when you cross over Tice Valley Boulevard, and that speed limit there is 35 miles an hour. Now, granted, very minor, right? I mean, you're covering a small distance. Are you gonna get a ticket or get pulled over by the police department? No. Could they? Yes. So the technical answer is you're not allowed to legally drive to Safeway in a golf cart that doesn't have all of the lights and other stuff. However, can you do it, and do people do it all the time here and there hasn't been an issue? Yes. But one thing with golf carts, please, you are never, ever allowed on the sidewalk. So hopefully we get the pedestrian gates in here and that will prevent that from happening, as I see that occasionally. That is so unsafe, so please don't ever drive your golf carts on the sidewalks. Another place is you're not allowed to drive it in the pedestrian area of Gateway. Those are all also considered sidewalks. They should be only on golf cart paths and the roadway.
Going back to listing the citations in the newspaper, will there be any personal information included?
No, the police department will not release who was issued a citation or who they stopped. They're just going to give us the numbers and the activity while they were here.
Okay, and why aren't there any traffic lights in
Oh,
Rossmore?
I think we hit that one
Did
already.
we? I'm so sorry, we did.
Okay.
Okay, and then, so there's a new stop sign at Tice Creek and Ptarmigan. Has that helped at all?
Yes, absolutely. So as you know, the reason we looked into that was, to start it off actually, there was someone who was hit in the crosswalk walking their dog, and they were hit by another Rossmore resident who said she wasn't paying attention and ran over this woman. This woman took about 18 months to recover from all her injuries. She was in hospital and rehab up to, I think it was a total of 18 months. Her life was almost extinguished because of this incident. When we looked back at this area, we noticed that it's odd that there's not a stop sign there, but there is one on Canyonwood. Canyonwood population is maybe a tenth or even smaller than the population on Ptarmigan. And because you look at, why do you look at populations? Because you look at street activity. How many cars are pulling up and how many cars are having to wait to move through the intersection, and how many pedestrians are moving through as well. So as we started looking at that and talking to the city of Walnut Creek, they recommended you need to have a stop sign there. It's odd that you don't have one there based on the traffic totals. And then we also looked back at our study that we did in 2016, and there was also, I believe, a recommendation or consideration to do it there as well. And so that's what we did, is we installed a new stop sign. That location is a lot safer than it's ever been, and I get quite a few compliments because of that.
All right. Have we thought about putting speed bumps in Rossmore?
Speed bumps.
Yeah, speed bumps comes up quite a bit, and so here's the reason why you don't see any speed bumps except for the temporary ones that are at the gate right now. It's because the city of Walnut Creek and most all cities don't put in speed bumps anymore. There were several lawsuits back in the 80s, I think it was, where cities would add a speed bump to a roadway, and that was considered an alteration to the roadway. And if someone was to crash or have something happen, then the risk, the liability would actually be on the city, because the city put something new onto that street. And if there wasn't proper notification and things like that. And on top of it, so cities stopped doing speed bumps on any existing roadways. And then on top of it, both fire and police are not fans of speed bumps. It delays the response. Remember how earlier we were talking about lag time? The longer it takes to get you to advanced medical support, which would be on like a paramedics unit or at the hospital, the longer it takes, the chances of survival go down. So they don't like to be slowed down as well when they're responding to an emergency. Now there's one thing that you might see that starts happening is speed humps. The city is actually playing around with this right now because they found out that it doesn't disrupt the flow of traffic as much. It's a little bit of a safer way. So they're trying out some temporary speed humps. I don't know if you might notice, I think there's only one actually in the city of Walnut Creek right now. But the other thing is on new roadways. You're allowed to, on new roadways, when you build the roadway, if you put in a speed hump, you do not take on that extra liability. So that's another thing that you might see in new developments and things like that. But here, you won't see them here in our community, and they're just really not that effective either.
All right. We have a question on the RV lot gate. Is there a status update on the gate for that?
Yeah, so that was actually part of the pedestrian gate. It was two things. It was the pedestrian gate and the RV gate. Right now, I really don't know where the board is on that.
So that is one of the items that is on the capital list for consideration. The board is going through a priority process when they're evaluating projects, And right now, that is, I believe, further down on the priority list, although it is certainly one of the projects that is still of interest to add security to the corporation yard as well as the RV lot up at MOD. That is one of the areas that when we do have theft in the community sometimes occurs in that lot and in the MOD contractor yard. So it's a good step to help increase security. It would be a gate that would be open during business hours, and then after hours or on the weekends would require an access card to get through. So something that again is on the horizon for consideration.
All right. And we have one final question, which is on the demonstration policy. Why do we need to revise the current demonstration policy?
Yeah.
So this is, I'll start off, this is something that has been under discussion at the policy committee for many months now, and then recently with the board of directors for consideration, and then will be introduced for final reading at their next meeting. And the main reason is you want to plan it ahead of time for demonstration considerations. We really don't have a demonstration policy for Rossmore. We have some guidelines that were adopted, and mainly it consisted of providing notification. But in terms of making sure that the public and the community is safe, and that the location is a safe location, and that the consideration of this being a private residential community is being considered, and that demonstrations by outside organizations, by non-residents, can all be controlled here within the gates. So we don't want to have a demonstration by a non-resident group that may, we use the term, shock the conscience of the community, be so outrageous, and we don't have any means of taking action or controlling that. We want a policy that allows us to, one, consider safety, two, consider that this is a private community, and we want it to be safe and respectful of the community. Are we trying to limit the residents' ability to gather, to discuss, to demonstrate areas of concern? This really does not take away that ability for residents to demonstrate or to gather in the community, hold a visual, hold a parade. It just provides a process and a means to evaluate and control to make sure it is within the safety of the community. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, another thing that it is, and Jeff hit on the safety part of it, and this is what we've seen actually by allowing individuals or groups to do a demonstration anywhere they want in the community, puts our drivers and our pedestrians in harm's way. And we've seen this at the Golden Rain Road and Rossmore Parkway area. We've had a handful of accidents that have happened there. I think we're up to 6 now. And those all happened during times that there was a demonstration going on. We even had one person who came and spoke, and she was doing a demonstration in that location, and she witnessed an accident happen, and she saw it, and she goes, it was very clear the resident was looking at my sign, trying to read my sign as she crashed into the median. So obviously our age here, our average age is 77 years old. So we have drivers who are older driving, and we don't need to give them more things to be distracted with. There's already a lot of things going on when you are driving, and now you have a demonstration for signs and people yelling and waving signs into the roadway. It's just not a good idea, especially for this community, to be doing that on the roadway that close to that busy intersection. So that's another thing we're looking at to try to prevent that from happening as well.
That is all the questions. Tom, do you have any final thoughts on public safety? Any areas that we didn't hit?
I do have a couple I do want to hit on. 2 clubs I want to plug because they're just fantastic. The first one is the Emergency Preparedness Organization. It's been here for many, many, many years. And it's kind of like the education arm of notifying and educating our community on how to be safe and how to prepare if there ever is a disaster here in Rossmore. I can't think of another altruistic way other than getting together and trying to make it safer for yourself and safer for your community. They have some fantastic speakers that come through. We've done even some on Zoom. We've had professors here, we've had CAL FIRE, we've had both the Sheriff's Department and Walnut Creek Police Department do things as well. It's a great place to go and learn more and be better prepared, because if you have that education, the safer you will be because of that. The other one, as I mentioned before, was Neighbors for Safer Streets. Again, another altruistic way to spend your time in order to make your community safer for each other. They do a fantastic job of educating the public as well as identifying issues that we need to look at. One of the things that we're looking at right now is a traffic study, and that is in front of...
That will be in front of Finance Committee in the coming months.
Right. So we did a traffic study back in 2016, and since 2016, a lot of things have changed, especially in the areas of technology in traffic areas. So for example, if anybody ever drives on Moraga Road, like you're going to go to the college out there, Lafayette has put up a couple stop signs that actually flash when it detects a car coming towards it. So you might say, well, we have that. No, we don't. We have a button a pedestrian presses at one intersection, and it turns on the flashing lights. A lot of times people don't see that if you're pulled up right to the stop sign, and a lot of times you miss the pedestrian as well. These, though, light up when it detects a car approaching it, just like kind of like our radar readers that we have throughout the community. What it does is it detects the motion, and then it tells the flashing lights to activate and alerts that, hey, this is a stop sign, and to draws more attention to that safety device. So those kinds of things of the traffic study have been supported and spurred by Neighbors for Safer Streets. And it's a great way for us to look globally at our whole community to see where can we be even better and safer, and are we in lines with new laws? For example, there is a daylighting law that just happened in January, which restricts how close you can park next to a crosswalk or even an unmarked crosswalk, which is at every intersection in here where there's not a stop sign or crosswalk. If there's an intersection there, there's an invisible crosswalk. I know that takes you back to the days when you're studying for your driver's exam, but it's in there. And now you cannot park within 20 feet of that invisible or visible crosswalk. So there's a lot of education we got to do on that. We actually have to go out and mark some curbs, make it red so that we know that we are daylighting. So people who are using the crosswalks have a good and safe chance that a driver is going to see them as they're entering that crosswalk. And we did quite a bit of that with the Tice Creek pedestrian and traffic safety project that we did. We spent just over $100 grand. And if you walk down there, you'll see it's a lot different than what it used to be. And we actually were ahead of the state coming out with that new law in order to daylight those crosswalks to make it safer for our pedestrians.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us today for the topic of public safety here in Rossmore. Hopefully you had your questions answered as Tom went through a lot of information there. But if you do have additional questions, please do reach out to us. We will be playing this again on Rossmore TV as well as on our YouTube channel. So if you didn't get a chance to see it live, it will be available in other formats. Again, thank you for joining us. We will continue our town hall series with our next focused on communication with Ann Peterson. That's it. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.